Welcome to Inside Games Roundup, the only gaming news show brave enough to have basically called it all around on that Subnautica situation. There are some spicy developments, and it turns out that Unknown Worlds' leadership might have been up to some shady business after all. At least that is if you believe Krafton, who fired them in the middle of the night and potentially deprived a whole studio of a hefty bonus. Or did they? The plot thickens quite thickeningly in that regard, and we'll go over all the details in just a moment because we have even more tales of gaming executives shooting their mouth off this week. In a move that could really swipe the gold at the tone-deaf Olympics, an Xbox executive thought it would be a really good idea to tell those affected by the massive Microsoft layoffs to ask an AI for advice on how to cope with being newly unemployed. That's a pinnacle LinkedIn brain rot, I think. Sheesh. Also this week, our favorite hard-posting game developer Hideki Kamiya called out the backlash he received after changing Bayonetta's casting for Bayonetta 3. And Nintendo is looking to refine their development process to make games smaller and faster. So, let's kick off the news. Oh, before we get there real quick, you might have noticed Bruce isn't around. He's bedridden, sick. He's been doing the dad thing a little too much and getting exposed to all those kid germs, so he's out of the way. But now, let's kick off the news by throwing to the one man that probably fondly remembers being smaller and faster, like a good Nintendo game, Brian Garr.
Oh boy. Always not small or fast these days. But yeah, first off, let's talk about Subnautica 2 because the murky waters just got a lot deeper. So we've got even more drama to talk about that's just happened over the last 24 hours. So the latest news, if you haven't been following, 3 of the game's original creators, that's including studio founder Charlie Cleveland, have filed a lawsuit against publisher Krafton. Now that came just hours after Krafton accused the 3 of them of, quote, abandoning the project and blamed them for delays in the game's production.
Yeah, Cleveland, along with CEO Ted Gill and Special Projects Director Max McGuire, were removed last week when Krafton brought in the Callisto Protocol's Steve Papoutsis to take over leadership. The publisher claimed it had tried to keep the original team involved, but said they refused requests to resume their roles. Krafton, and this is the really spicy bit, Krafton also alleged that Cleveland chose to focus on a personal film project instead.
Yeah, Krafton gave a statement about all of this, and they said their departure led to confusion and delays, leaving the early access version lacking content. And the 3 originals basically say it's ready for early access, and that's kind of where a lot of the friction is. The publisher added that 90% of a reported $250 million bonus, which is now in jeopardy, would have gone to the ousted trio. They go on to promise, quote, fair and equitable compensation for all remaining Unknown Worlds employees for whatever that is worth.
Yeah, it's such a giant pile of money, though. I mean, $25 million dispersed over, 97 remaining employees. That's still a nice little payday.
$250 million.
Oh, yeah, but if like the 10%, that gets left over for everyone else.
Yeah, true.
If they're sleeping on the job with that amount of money on the line, holy cow. Anyway, Cleveland hit back in a post to the Subnautica community, calling the situation explosive and surreal. He denied abandoning the project and claimed the game is ready for early access, and said the lawsuit was necessary to, quote, make this right.
Yeah, he wrote that, quote, suing a multi-billion-dollar company was certainly not on my bucket list, but Subnautica has been my life's work. So yeah, it's a question of kind of who do you believe? Like the company said, these guys left we had no choice, it forced our hand, and the 3 founders were like, no, we didn't.
Yeah, and I guess it's really for the courts to decide at this point, which is going to be kind of crazy, because I don't think we'll ever see what state the game is in. And how do you even legally argue that at some point? That'll be really interesting. So at this point, yeah, it's a jury that is probably not like hyper into games is going to have to make some subjective judgment about how release ready or early access ready a game is. That's bizarre. Anyway,
this has settlement written all over it. I bet they'll come to something.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think they're just having some money fights right now, and they'll figure it out. And we'll see what state the game is theoretically in 2026. That's now when the game's supposed to enter early access, but at this point, who knows? Maybe some data miners will dive in there and reconstruct a narrative in reverse of what actually happened.
All right, moving on in a move that perfectly encapsulates the year of our Lord 2025, an Xbox executive thought the best way to comfort thousands of laid-off game developers was through ChatGPT prompts. Just salt in the wounds, to say the least.
It's a squeeze of lemon in the eye.
So following Microsoft's latest round of layoffs, which have now impacted thousands since early last year, Xbox Game Studios Publishing's executive director, Matt Turnbull, took to LinkedIn with a heartfelt message. And by heartfelt, I mean he posted a list of AI-generated writing prompts for people who had just lost their jobs. This is a real story.
The prompts, which ranged from resume touch-ups to, quote, reframing imposter syndrome. I don't feel an ounce of imposter syndrome the second I get laid off. I don't know about anyone else. Anyway, according to Turnbull, these were meant to, quote, reduce the emotional and cognitive load, end quote, of being laid off, because nothing says compassion like outsourcing empathy to a chatbot, especially when Microsoft just laid off 9,000 people while pledging to spend $80 billion on AI.
Yeah, I didn't feel any imposter syndrome after Rooster Teeth, I gotta say. Yeah, it's no. Yeah. And again, but this is all so tone deaf, especially in an industry that has seen brutal layoffs in recent years. One estimate that said more than 33,000 people have been laid off in the gaming industry in the last few years as of the end of last year, and there have been more than that. So yeah, it's just terrible right now.
Man, imagine going to what is ostensibly your replacement to ask for advice and empathy. Turnbull's post, which has since been deleted, so at least he has the good sense to do that, included everything from LinkedIn bio tips to simulated pep talks. It ended with, quote, no AI is a replacement for your voice or your lived experience.
It is, how, a perfect replacement for your actual job that you make money to live on.
Yeah. It's a replacement for your paycheck, yeah.
All right, moving on. Hey, remember the drama leading up to Bayonetta 3's launch in 2022? You're the one where the original voice actor, Helena Taylor, claimed she was underpaid and got replaced, and that sparked a whole internet firestorm that engulfed not just her replacement, Jennifer Hale, but also the series creator, Hideki Kamiya. Well, Kamiya is finally talking about it.
I love it when he talks about things, yes. In a new video response to a fan, Kamiya didn't revisit the controversy itself, but he did talk about the social media chaos that followed. He described his Twitter feed as a relentless barrage, saying, quote, it was wild, I kept blocking nonstop, but I couldn't keep up.
Yeah, what really seemed to stick with him, though, was the online pile-on from some high-profile critics who later deleted their tweets without any acknowledgement. Kamiya said, apologize to me first before you do anything sneaky. That's some real coward shit.
Yeah, it kind of is, yeah. And while Kamiya didn't name names, one of those critics appeared to be Detroit Become Human actor Brian Deckhart, whose tweet scolding Kamiya for greed was shown in a screen grab during the video, though that post has since been deleted.
Yeah, and Kamiya was basically arguing that people need to own their own words, saying, you posted publicly on social media, right? So if you were wrong, you should publicly admit it. Man, that was seriously lame. I thought he was going to be like, challenge me to a fight, one-on-one, man-to-man, but he was basically just saying, you should, I get it. If you did it and you took it down, say you're sorry. Like, I shouldn't have done that. It is lame. He's not wrong.
Yeah, he's not wrong. And people get pretty loose on the internet, especially when they think they're on the right side of a cause. People trip over themselves to say the right thing in front of an audience without really considering that they don't know all the facts yet. Yeah, people do it all the time, but you're right. It is a bit cowardly once a situation complicates, or you're forced to acknowledge that it's not as simple as it seemed on the surface to just delete it and pretend like nothing was said. That sucks from Kamiya's perspective because he has to put up with all these people directly insulting him and then just pretending like nothing happened.
And there's something to be said for just saying, hey, I was wrong. Like I shouldn't have done, or I shot my mouth off and my bad, and, but I don't know, what a mess. All right, moving on. Finally, let's talk about Nintendo. As development costs continue to climb, they're looking for ways to keep making games without spending the big bucks, and, with game budgets getting out of control, it completely makes sense.
Yeah, it's affecting every games company, and every games company is kind of trying to find a different way to deal with it. So I'm curious what Nintendo will do, because they always, they're always doing their own thing. Specifically, what prompted all this is in a recent investor call, Nintendo president Shuntaro Furukawa acknowledged that making modern games is getting more expensive and time-consuming.
Yeah, he said recent game software development has become larger in scale and longer in duration, adding that higher costs could mean higher risk for the company, just basically high risk, high reward situation. And Nintendo famously tries to not be risky. They're famously risk averse.
Yeah, they like to keep things simple and packaged. One possible solution Nintendo's looking at is to just make the games faster than they used to. On that note, Furukawa added, quote, "We believe it's important to make the necessary investments for more efficient development. We also believe it is possible to develop game software with shorter development periods that still offer consumers a sense of novelty." Well, that's kind of interesting. They also, pushed the price of their games up, so they're the ones kind of scaling prices up on the forend, whereas a lot of other games that have huge development costs, they try to recoup it through extended monetization or something like that. So it's interesting to see every company kind of try something else. Nintendo, I think they're just going to scale their sticker price according to what they think the game is worth from their perspective, which is why Welcome Tour was $10 and Mario Kart's $80. So yeah, we might still be seeing some very efficiently scoped games out of Nintendo. Zelda will still probably stay huge, but I think everything else might kind of stay where it's at.
For sure. And I think just they're a Japanese company and they tend to be more conservative, like keep a lot of cash on hand, keep development costs down. So this completely seems in line with that. All right, let's do a 5-second review. All right, this is Grim Dawn, and in my unending search for a new AARPG, not AARPG, which y'all made fun of me for being a Freudian slip in the last thing, but Grim Dawn, an ARPG, it is not new, but it's sort of Victorian era. It's like Diablo, but at Victorian era. Very fun. Highly recommended if you want to just kill a lot of things very quickly.
Saw The Ascent is back on Game Pass, so I never finished that one. I'm going to pick that one back up.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a cyberpunk action RPG. But here's what's coming out this upcoming week. First, Dungeons & Dragons Neverwinter Nights 2 Enhanced Edition. The fate of the Forgotten Realms is in your hands. Return to the city of Neverwinter in Dungeons & Dragons Neverwinter Nights 2 Enhanced Edition on the PC, PS5, Switch, and Xbox Series X on July 15th.
Next up, Donkey Kong Bonanza. Donkey Kong and Pauline are swinging onto the Nintendo Switch 2 in a brand new 3D platforming action adventure. Join them as they run, jump, and climb through each environment and smash through almost any obstacle in their way. Get ready to chase down the nefarious Void Company and recover the golden bananas. It comes to Switch 2, July 17th.
Finally, a game. Another game. Next up, speaking of AARP, we got Golden Tee Arcade Classics. Tee up the old school fun. Golden Tee Arcade Classics brings 8 legendary arcade classics home, no quarters required. Enjoy Golden Tee 3D Golf, Golden Tee 97, Golden Tee 98, Golden Tee 99, Golden Tee 2K, and Golden Tee Classic, exactly as you remember them from your days at the arcade, or more likely, your local watering hole. Golden Tee Arcade Classics comes to PC, PS4, PS5, Switch, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X on July 17th.
That was huge at my local bar in 2001.
How do you play that without the trackball, though? You need that.
I know, that's the whole, you have to violently hit it and swear, yeah. All right, next up, Hunter x Hunter, Nin X Impact. Hunter x Hunter's first full-fledged fighting game is now available with 3v3 Nin ability team battles. Aim for victory with your own strongest team. Comes to PC, PS5, and Switch July 17th.
And finally, Shadow Labyrinth is a 2D action platformer and genre-twisting alternative take on the iconic Pac-Man. As the swordsman, you wake on a mysterious planet amidst relics of wars past. To survive, you will need to discover secrets, consume your enemies, and grow from prey to apex predator. Shadow Labyrinth comes to PC, PS5, Switch, and Xbox Series on July 18th. And here at the end of the show, we'd like to celebrate everyone, really. If you've watched this far, thank you very much for watching, choosing to watch, spending your time here, sharing your love of video games. We appreciate it. I'd like to especially celebrate the folks that decide to support the show directly. Keep Brian swimming in action RPGs. We like that. We got a couple of special patrons. We do some shout outs at the end of the show here. These patrons are especially special because they managed to tweet at Hideki Kamiya and didn't get blocked, which is that's a flaming hoop to jump through right there. Brown Sugar and Scotty Ryan, thank you very much. And unfortunately, these next patrons were not as lucky. They never added him in the first place and still got blocked. Don't know what you did, but you did something. Pitstrip and Rook, tough luck, but maybe the next Twitter account will fly through. So thank you again for watching, and check out the Patreon. I post a daily dank internet meme there, so it's deep from my private vault, my personal selection. But please enjoy and have a great weekend, everybody.